My god, it's adorable. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Kirby's Dream Land 3. The last time we started off the game and now we're in World 2 Ripple Fields, which if you can't tell by the fact that there's water on screen, is our general water level. Kirby's Dream Land 3 is very much like the second game and later games in the series in that even though worlds might have a general theme, that doesn't lock them into certain types of level design, because we'll still have water levels in some later worlds from my memory, as well as just level worlds that aren't really related to the theme. Which, you know, I like it when games do that. Worlds have a theme, but levels don't necessarily have to play by it. Either way, I want to grab Pitch because we actually need his little water throwing ability with the broom copy ability in order to actually fulfill this level's mission. Pitch is probably not my least favorite of the animal buddies in this game. Honestly, I actually like him a lot in comparison to some of the other ones because similarly to Ku, at least he can fly. But I have issues with him. Namely, the fact that his abilities aren't nearly as good as Ku's. Either way, this room, there's a couple of these in this specific screen, is where our mission is. If you have Pitch and the broom ability, you throw water onto little plants to make flowers sprout. Sprout all the flowers, we get our heart star at the end. It is a bit of an odd case because you can still damage the flowers after you sprout them, so you want to be a bit careful with what you're doing. But overall, this mission isn't too horrible. See, that reminds me, for some reason. Kirby's Dream Land 3 plays a bit closer to some other game logics, where it's not like, say, Kirby's Dream Land 3 or Kirby's Dream Land 3, Nightmare in Dreamland God, or some of the other Kirby games where you get hit once with the copy ability and you lose it. You generally just have to get hit twice in succession to lose your copy ability in this game's case, which honestly is something I wish was in all the Kirby games, because I hate you get touched once, you almost lose your ability in this series, honestly. Yeah, unless it's a certain powerful kind of attack, you know, like maybe a boss attack I could forgive it, but normal enemies, eh. Either way, since we completed the mission now, we can actually just head through the rest of the stage. And something I am glad about with a decent amount of the stages in Dream Land 3 is that, generally speaking, the mission is completed on the second to last screen of a level. Some cases notwithstanding, obviously, just because you can't account for all of them, but it's a good amount. Also, I apologize if I end up repeating any information from the last part here, because it's been about 2 weeks since I recorded part 1. I think I mentioned what these green things are, but in the case I didn't, they're basically Donkey Kong Country barrels. There's going to be some that will rotate us around and we can fire at will, just like in Donkey Kong Country, but for the most part, they'll just be facing a certain way and will fire you automatically. Ripple Fields, admittedly, is still not a very interesting world to me, because while it does more than the first world, Kirby's Dream Land 3 to me still doesn't get interesting until the latter half. The missions get more annoying, yes, but the game is also more interesting in a way because of such. I'm surprised I got that. I will openly admit I suck at that minigame. I'm better at the version of it that also appears in 64, but not by much. Alright, World 2. First off, I love the color palette here. The orangey sunset is nice. Also, gosh dang, Pitch Spike is horrible. Pitch does have some good abilities, namely, as you can see, Parasol is really good, as is Pitch Fire, because they both allow you to move on your own while the ability is going on, which is something that not many abilities in this game allow you to do unless you're, like, with Ku as it is. So, you know, I can approve of that. Also, if I recall, isn't there a jump cut coming up in the video? Yes, there is. Yeah, I had to go get lunch because I realized it was 3 p.m. when I was recording this, and I hadn't had lunch yet. Either way, I need to give up Ku for now, Pitch for now, because I actually need Kind for something coming up. Namely, in particular, I should have mentioned this back when I got the power-up, but you do need Kind Parasol in order to get this level's mission fulfilled. Thankfully, Kind in a water world kicks all sorts of ass. Even though, honestly, he's not too useful for this world's boss, but that's just due to how it works. Kind Parasol is a decent enough power-up for just platforming around, But when you're trying to fight enemies, it's honestly pretty worthless. Because it doesn't really... I don't even think it can damage enemies unless they're above you. Either way, this mission... this room is where our mission is. We need to just use Kind Parasol around this guy. And now he's all happy. And now we can go finish the level. Also, for some reason, there's something about this game's graphical style that just makes the Gordos look very unthreatening. Or at least not make them stand out as much. Because in the other Kirby games I can recall off the top of my head, Gordos had something that always made them stand out. Be it a very repetitive animation, flashiness to them. There was always something. Here they just kind of blend in, almost to a point of me missing them sometimes. Either way, that's 2-2 done. Now let's head into 2-3, which world is this? Okay, this one. Time for our minigame mission for the world. And it's probably one of the easiest ones, honestly. Kind got a decent amount of good power-ups this time around as well, because, honestly, Parasol aside, I think almost every single one of his abilities actually has some decent use to it, if you're just going through the levels. Mostly because some of them are actually, decent projectiles this time around instead of just a bulb. But, either way, I end up ditching Kind for Rick here because I thought Rick would be more useful. Even though, honestly, I probably, in hindsight, should have just stuck with Kind because he's just more useful in an overall water world. But, we all have our moments of idiocy. Just so happens that mine are surprisingly common. Though I'd rather have Spark get in my mouth. Oh, hey, it's just basically what Beam would be in later games. Or earlier game. Huh. The Kirby release timeline's always been a bit odd because the third sequel came out after the what is technically the third sequel. Or the second sequel. My brain don't work properly. Dreamland 3 came out after Adventure. There we go. And I think even Dreamland 2 came out after Adventure, if I recall. Which, Either way, the minigame for this world is finding the eel. He's gonna raise up out of one of these jars and with 4 other Gordos, and you just need to, when the round ends, select which vase he's in. I got particularly lucky in this playthrough because all 3 times he ended up in the right vase. This isn't too annoying, even though I think I said it may have been annoying earlier, I already forget. But by the time you reach the 3rd round, he is moving pretty quickly, so don't feel too bad if you lose. And with that, the mission is done for this world. We can just progress on this level, so we can just progress on through the rest of it. Admittedly, something that's gonna be an issue in this game's case, particularly, is that just due to the repetitive mission-based structure of it, there will be more times where I'm probably gonna be more struggling for things to say. Because one of my bigger issues with the Kirby series, at least in terms of LPing them, is that because they're made more so for beginners, there are times where you just can and more than likely will run into things to, run out of things to say, rather. The one thing that Kirby's Dream Land 3 has a lot of, and I'm not a fan of the fact it does, is that it has a lot of auto-scrollers, particularly in the latter 2/3-ish of the game. There's just a lot of them. Not a fan of that. Auto-scrollers can work, they can, but they need to be interesting, you know? That's actually one thing I'll give Mega Man 4. Its auto-scrolling level is interesting, and on the first playthrough of it, so is Duff McWhalen's stage in X5. But it's only on the first playthrough with that one's case. Auto-scrollers just always reek of padding to me. I think the last auto-scroller I think I legitimately fully enjoyed was probably the one in Shantae Half Genie Hero. Which even then, that wasn't entirely auto-scroller, because you actually had to progress in that world a bit still, but, you know. Also, suddenly temple aesthetic that I absolutely love. That is, I suppose, another thing this game is actually really good at. Not only do all the levels look good, a good amount of them have a look of their own, which is pretty impressive. Either for this level, we want to keep our hands on Broom, because that's how we fulfill the mission for this world. In an odd way, though, this aesthetic reminds me of what I believe, if I recall, at least is another HAL Laboratories game. Starfy. I can't exactly place my finger on why exactly, but it just does for some reason. Also, hi, Kine, I need you again because you're faster at swimming. Though I suppose in another way, it also reminds me of Klonoa, but that's just because cartoony kids game that can be kind of dark sometimes. Oh boy, Kind Spark. My favorite. Actually, I was wrong earlier. We do not need Broom for this level. I'm thinking of something later on. We don't need it, but it's recommended to have Kind Spark. My apologies for that. I was thinking of a level later on. Like in the previous games, Kind Spark can actually show you hidden doors. Or in this case, it can show you what doors are real. Doors that are enemies will be still pitch black even when the lights wash out the area. And doors that aren't washed out and are just there otherwise, well, you can tell them because they just show up entirely. You don't need Kind Spark to actually access any of these doors because they're there no matter what. But it's how you find out they're there is what the big issue is here. Really, I didn't need to show either of those doors up, but I guess it's something. Kind Spark would honestly have a lot more use if you could fire it forward like more of an actual projectile. Also, this sequence totally isn't stressful. Again, another auto-scroller. I could be jumping up this at my own pace, but no. This game also loves to use those little puddle guys you just saw there, which are odd spin-offs of the weird totem enemies we've seen ever since the first game. Although if you went through the right door, you'd end up through that door on the right there, but because we went through the left hidden door with Spark, we can come up to here to fight another mini-boss. And I forget which one this is. Okay, this is the Spike mini-boss, another giant Goro. This guy's actually a returning one from Dreamland 2. And he's still fairly annoying there, especially when you do stupid stuff like that. Something that he does, compared to, I think, his Dreamland 2 incarnate, is that he'll actually try to follow you if you go up in the air, which can be surprisingly annoying. And even though it's not immediately apparent, there actually is a field obstacle in this arena. The waterfalls in the foreground do affect you, even though it looks like you're completely behind them. They will change your jumping physics, and that's actually why I died in this fight, because I could not tell my jumps were being affected. Yeah, see? You swim in it. That's dumb. But yeah, that's a mini-boss. Keep Spike just for the sake of having it. And in doing so, actually no, we need to get it in this case because it's how we rescued this guy. Mission 4 is, as usual, the one where we need to rescue something in order to actually get our heart star. That is one thing that can kind of throw you off about the temple aesthetic, though. You might think these pillars are in the foreground and thus block you off, even though they're very much not. But that's just always an issue with games in general. There's always going to be that one time, be it intentional or otherwise, where you can't tell you can walk through something. I don't mind it if it's intentional, like that one room in Ridley's Lair in Super Metroid, where you have to walk left in order to exit it, but you can't tell you can walk through it until you actually, walk through it. It doesn't even show up on your X-ray visor. Either way, that's Mission 4. It's Happy Froggos. Give me your heart. Fatality. And with that, we're on to Mission 5, which I actually cannot recall which one that is in Ripple Fields. Wait, no, that's right. Level 5, rather, world is where you need a specific animal buddy in order to get the heart star. In this case, as the picture would indicate, we need to somehow find Pitch. However, you might notice I have Kine now instead of Pitch. Why? You need Kine in order to get Pitch in this level, and you need the game requires you to have Kine to get through a certain part of the level as it is, as a way so that you can't just bring in Pitch from another level in order to easily get this heart star. And it's kind of annoying, but okay. This is the room where you would find Kine. In the case you for some reason chose to ignore him, You'd find yourself in this room, you can't fight the current, you'd be dragged left, and you have to enter a door back into that kind room. And now in this giant stone area, we need to go through a bit of a roundabout way in order to get kind through this room into the next one. In particular, we need to head in this room and grab the fire ability from this dragon. Which, easier said than done, apparently. Now that we have that, we can do some things. I'm actually kind of fond of this mission, though, because it requires more than just going, okay, so I need to get this character at the end of there. You need to figure out how to get that character there first. So we need fire in order to melt the fire blocks, but as you can tell, we now need stone. In order to get stone, we need to leave kind there. Because up here, there's a one-tile high pathway that only Kirby himself can walk through. I don't think there's any animal buddies you can walk through that with, actually, because I think all the other animal buddies cause you and Kirby to be, them and Kirby to be approximately 1.5 tiles tall. Now that we got stone right there, we can head back through here to get to the stone blocks and grab kind to finish this room with. Very easy puzzle solving, but it's puzzle solving all the same. Compared to some of the other missions, I'll take this any day. Honestly, when it comes to the hard stars, though, I know I'm only getting into this in part 2. They're an interesting idea, but I may have even gone over this last part, I forget. But I think they shouldn't have been the focus, you know? Like, hard stars probably should have been a way to get bonus content, whereas they could have brought back something more like the rainbow drops for the main game. Need to swim kind all the way into this doorway, because there's pitch. Mind you, me saying that I would have preferred something like the rainbow drops is because I prefer MacGuffins to be a little more like that anyway, where they're just something you can get in the level, you don't need to fulfill any certain requirements. I can't think of a very relevant example of something like that, but it just feels more right to me when it's something like the rainbow drops. Even though the rainbow drops can be kind of dumb to get themselves sometimes, I openly admit. Oh, hey, a 1-up I could have gotten if I kept kind. Too bad I need heart stars. In Dreamlands 3's case, though, it doesn't help the hard stars that some of the levels are so long, making replaying missions very tedious. Which, and again, might be just due to the fact that the series is more meant for beginner gamers, you know? Because a person like me at this point is looking for something more complex than this, even though I find the games themselves still be fun. Which, I guess is just the harm of me playing a Kirby game in that I risk this kind of thing happening. But, oh well, I can live with it. Plus, I still get to gush over how gorgeous this game looks, because my god, the sprite work is so good. Though, it's weird, by the way. I swear this game's soundtrack is smaller than it actually seems, because I think this game remixes some songs within the game more than once. However, it also has a decent chunk of original music, too. Either way, that's the hard star. We've been in this level for a bit too long. Let's move on to Ripplefield 6. Which, I am having issues remembering which one that is. I remember who the boss is, but I can't remember what mission's next. Is it? Yes, it is that one. Okay, now notice the shape of that guy we just saw in the picture. Keep that in mind for later. Also, goodbye, Pitch. I'm leaving you behind forever. Well, more than likely not forever. I think I use you a couple other times later on, but really, at this point, unless you're required, I have no reason to use you. You don't actually need a specific animal buddy in this. I'm taking Tago just because I feel like taking Tago. But what we need in this stage is nothing, really. Until we get to the branching pathway where the actual mission is, this level is actually extraordinarily straightforward. I'm gonna take Broom just because Broom with Tago is really good for just moving through a level like this. But you can really take anything you want. Alright, now this is a bit of an annoying room in that it's just kind of dumb. we have to find the right pathway on each specific instance. This doesn't lead you down an incorrect path, technically. It just means if you screw it up, you actually have to start the room all over again. I want to say you have to go top, bottom, middle, I think? You could theoretically find out just by heading all the way left in this room, but I just didn't feel like wasting time like that. Also, love this song. And I believe, yeah, it's like the middle, basically. Close enough. Honestly, thinking about what I was talking about earlier with lack of things to say, even though I think it's still my favorite Kirby game, I think the biggest defender of that's probably gonna be whenever I get to Kirby's Amazing Mirror. Because if I can't find a way to play that game in the multiplayer format, it's gonna be tedious. Either way, notice this shape right here. And down there's the guy we saw in the picture. Keep in mind the arrangement of blocks directly above us, because in the next room we go into, we're going to need to memorize that shape. Or we're going to need to memorize that shape before when we're in the next room, rather. It doesn't matter which door you go into, they both lead to the same place, by the way. Either way, in here we have a 5x5 arrangement of blocks. What we need to do here is match the design we saw in the previous room. It's also the design of the guy on the mission logo on the map screen. So we need to make it so the top and bottom rows have 1 block, the ones after that have 3, in the middle has 5. It's easiest to do this with the basic bubbles you get when you're underwater, mostly just due to the fact that you can take down 2 blocks at once by doing this. This type of mission is surprisingly uncommon, because you'd think with a game like this would be a somewhat common trope they would try to use, but they actually still get fairly inventive with the missions later on. I think they only use that a total of twice. It also, in a way, reminds me of the first shunt. No, that was Risky's Revenge, rather. Because you had to do some similar stuff in the first dungeon of that game, Squid Baron's Labyrinth. You know, one of the game's 2 actual dungeons. Oh, Risky's Revenge. You're a good game, but you're so woefully incomplete. Also, how cool is that? Tago probably, when I'm not playing as Pitch or Ku for mobility's sake, because flying is probably the animal buddy I like the most. Just because the mobility with him seems to be the best due to his actual, like, triple jump and his abilities making him able to move much more quickly in general fashion. And that's also the last mission for World 2. Now we're actually heading on to the boss, who, unlike Wispy, is entirely original. Now, as for who we're fighting this time around, as you can see on the bottom right there, we're fighting someone named Acro, and oh, he's a giant fish. Acro's first phase is kind of disappointingly easy. He'll flop all across the screen and slam into the wall, in which case a star or a rock will fall out, and you just need to shoot it into him. That's the entire first half of the fight right there. Once we get into his second phase, though, things get a bit interesting, because he cracks the floor beneath us and causes us to fall into water. Tago does not do well underwater, by the way. At this point, he'll choose one of the 2 directions to go in, and just start swimming that direction backwards with us chasing behind him. What's going to happen when we reach a wall is he's going to slam into the wall, and then he's going to cause rocks to fall down. You need to use the bubbles to actually bump those rocks into Acro's back to damage him. They are a bit forgiving with the rocks, in that the angles generally try to aim for him, I believe, but it also just depends on where you are in relation to them, so you need to still be a bit more specific than you'd think. And that was contradictory, but it's hard to explain. It can be kind of picky, but it also can't be. Because I don't think the rocks that you have to shoot at him have like a full 180-degree rotation of being able to move. I want to say the most they can move is 5 directions. If even. Maybe 8. I don't know. Either way, it can be kind of specific. It also can't be. It's weird. But that's also Ripplefield's done. Acro was not the most annoying boss. And while this has a fairly annoying mission with trying to get Pitch, it's also fairly interesting. Ripplefields is nothing too bad. Also, minor nitpick, I think this animation goes on a bit too long. Like, it could have ended maybe 4 seconds ago. Oh, so that's adorable. Little underwater dance. Either way, with that, I'm going to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 3, we'll be heading into World 3 and seeing what missions await us for Heart Stars in there. See you guys then.